Welcome to Game Day Sports Radio. Wondering if it's going to be the same old song and dance this season with Alabama, Clemson, Georgia, Ohio State dominating the road to the college football playoff? Who has the best chance to crash the party and be a newcomer? Looking for some value with some futures? Did Notre Dame and the Big Ten come to an agreement? We have this information and much, much more for you tonight on Inside the Numbers with your host, the coach, Bogie Wood, and the analyst, Mike Bernard. Welcome, everybody, to Game Day Sports Radio, Inside the Numbers, with your hosts, Mike Bernard and Bogie Wood. If you haven't had that opportunity yet to click the subscribe button, please do so now. And also, please follow us on Game Day Sports Radio 1 on your Instagram page. Mike, ESPN rolled out an article this week suggesting that we could be looking at the same old song and dance with the same old players in the college football playoff, but they also put some odds out there on some people that they think might crash the party. What are your thoughts?
Well, you got Texas A&M 25 to 30 to 1, USC 20 to 30 to 1, Utah's as low as 45. I saw them as high as 60. Oklahoma State, as high as 80. And look, history says betting these teams are just dead bets. None of these teams have even made the playoffs. Of the last 8 title games, 5 have been won by elite SEC teams. Clemson won 2. And, of course, Ohio State won the inaugural playoff in 14. And, look, Oklahoma and Notre Dame, great programs. They've been 6 times, but they're 0-6.
Listen, if you don't like the same old song and dance, you might as well get you a book, curl up by the fire during playoff season, because you're going to have an elite SEC team. They're there, either Alabama or Georgia. And guess what? You may have both. They, just like last year, they both may be there. As for the teams that are listed in this article, they're not, as you said, Mike, they're not one of the 13 teams that have made the playoffs. Texas A&M, when they came into the SEC, they got the bad draw. Missouri came in at the same time. Missouri went to the East. They played the SEC championship game twice. They got beat both times, but at least they got there. Had A&M been in the East instead of the West, they would have probably been 3 or 4 times in the last 10 years or so. But playing against that juggernaut, that's the SEC West, no, they don't have a chance of getting there. USC, listen, I like USC. I like Lincoln Riley. I like him because of the NIL changes in the college football game. You're in Los Angeles. You can recruit talent to Los Angeles. You have talent in Los Angeles. As far as Utah and Oklahoma State goes, Utah, you go back, their best team was probably that 2018 that went undefeated and beat Alabama in the Sugar Bowl. However, it's in my opinion, had something been on the line in that game for Alabama, just besides a Sugar Bowl championship, I don't know if that game would have turned out that way. As far as Oklahoma State, I don't know if Oklahoma State is a team that maybe is snake-bitten a little bit when it comes to playing for a national championship. They had the opportunity, if you'll remember several years ago, I can't remember what year it was, Mike, but they shanked a field goal up at Iowa State, and it cost them the chance to go to the old BCS game. Last year, had they won the Big 12, and they were about that far away on the last play of the game, they probably would have gotten into the playoffs. They probably would have been there. So again, I just don't know if they're ready for the big stage. However, we know that USC is ready for the big stage. Yes, they're in a lull right now. They've been in a lull for a while. They haven't been as elite as they were under John McKay, under Pete Carroll. But they've got a coach there now who's been to the college playoffs. He knows what it's like. He's played against the elite teams, and now I think he's going to have an even better talent pool than he had at Oklahoma. In my mind, I think USC is the team of these to watch. What about you, Mike?
Yeah, I would agree. And you're talking about that 2011 year with Oklahoma State, because remember, LSU had the misfortune of having to beat Alabama twice that year. They split, but they beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa. Alabama won the BCS game, so they get the trophy. we could do a whole show on that, and I think we actually have. But one of the things is, I love future bets. You guys know that. I bet them. I give them to our clients. I play them myself. But, when I look at this, you're looking at Alabama at 2-1 and Georgia at 3-1. And even those are just bad bets. They're just not, there's no value there. Now, when you look at Wisconsin at 90-1, again, it goes back to when I play these big numbers. The numbers get me to playing these games, just like with Pitt last year to win the ACC. This Wisconsin bet, the global market had it 50-60-1. I'm thinking, oh great, I've got the best number available. Well, actually, just yesterday I saw 100-1. So that's key. Keep looking for the best numbers, and sometimes you want to play your bets in increments. Look, Alabama and Clemson have dominated. Alabama's 7 appearances. Clemson had 6 appearances. And remember, but titles don't, from the betting angle, titles don't always equal success at the betting window. In fact, the Tide, Alabama, they're 1-5 against the spread their last 6 title games. So they're winning titles, but they're not covering sometimes when they win them. And as for a regional bias, it may exist, but the SEC has won 3 straight, 5 of 8 in the playoffs. Even going back to the BCS games, Coach, only one school north of the Mason-Dixon line has won a championship ring since 1997. And that was Ohio State, who did it in 2014, and they did it in 2002.
Yeah, and Ohio State, I think they're the elite program north of the Mason-Dixon, and the numbers prove that out. Of course, Zeke Elliott, they dominated Alabama in the Sugar Bowl in the semifinals back in 2014, and of course, it took care of Oregon in the championship game. Now, you mentioned that 2002 squad from Ohio State. Jim Tressel, Mr. Sweatervest, was the coach back. They went 14-0, but I want you to think about the number of coaches on that staff that have gone on to great success. Mark D'Antonio, who went to Michigan State, he actually took them to their one appearance in the college football playoffs, and Alabama welcomed them out in Dallas that year. Mel Tucker, who won a championship at Alabama as an assistant. Now he's back at Michigan State. And then Luke Fickell was on that staff, and he's another coach that got Cincinnati into the playoffs last year, the first non-Power 5. And that was a great coaching staff. You even look at Mark Snyder, who was the linebackers coach there. He was a part of that Ohio State staff, but he didn't have the success as a head coach in Marshall, but has done a great job as a defensive coordinator. SEC fans and Alabama fans in particular will remember back in 2012, he was the defensive coordinator in Texas A&M when Johnny Manziel came into Tuscaloosa, and Texas A&M's defense sealed the deal with an interception on the goal line late in the game.
Yep, I remember that well, Coach, and that Luke Fickell, he had them to the playoffs last year, and a lot of people look at that game with Alabama and said, oh, it's just, the group of 5, as they call them, didn't belong. That was, I believe, an 11-point game in the fourth quarter.
It was, and again, you've got to understand that these teams get no respect, and when they get into the playoffs, and if it's a close game in the fourth quarter, and they try to take some chances to get back into the game, and then all of a sudden it's a blowout, then they're exactly who we thought they were. Well, that's not the case at all. You can even go back to, I believe it was the 2010 championship in the Rose Bowl with Alabama and Texas. And, of course, even after McCoy got knocked out of the game in the first quarter, Texas was still in the game. Right before half, Texas made a huge blunder, and was it Darius that intercepted the shuttle pass and took it back into the touchdown? And even in the fourth quarter, again, it was less than a 2-score game.
Well, it was 24-21 with about 5 minutes to go. People forget because the final was 37-21. And one of the things about the bets we were talking about, one reason there's no value is they're not going to get there. When you're going to have the elite teams, that's a different argument. But you're going to possibly have 2 teams from the SEC. You're going to have the elite team from the Big Ten. So you're betting all these other teams that don't have a very good chance, as history shows us, that to even get in the playoff.
Correct.
Hey guys, saw something interesting this week. We'd like to get your insight on. Big Ten reportedly no longer interested in any Pac-10 teams. You know, we all know Phil Knight has been out there shopping Oregon anywhere and everywhere he could find him. He wants a home. There's reports in this article by Bleacher Report that they look for a package with Oregon, Washington State, and Cal to bring all four of them over. But now they've reportedly suggested that they're no longer interested in any of them. Then you couple that with a follow-up article later in the week that they're about to offer all their media rights to the Fox News, to NBC, and to CBS, which obviously is losing the SEC. Is the Big Ten suggesting or making that Notre Dame play, that NBC play for Notre Dame?
Well, it could be, but the Big Ten has announced that CBS is going to be carrying Big Ten games moving forward. $1 billion deal.
Oh, that's not much.
No, not at all. No, not at all.
I mean, it just seems strange to me that you would. It just seems strange to me that you would cut off all your negotiating ties with the Pac-12 by suggesting that you're no longer interested, and then bring NBC into the mix, which really has done nothing with college football except for Notre Dame. To me, it just seems like a play to either to entice them to come or suggest that maybe something's already done and just hasn't been announced yet.
The only way that I see this happening is if Notre Dame is able to keep their contract with NBC and they partner with the Big Ten, much like they partnered with the ACC over the past several years to guarantee them a competitive schedule. I see them keeping their contract, though, and partnering with the Big Ten. And the Big Ten gets the benefit of that now because not only do they have the contract with CBS, and they have still the contract with Fox, but now they will be on the third network, NBC. And we know what type, regardless of their record, regardless of how good they are, we know what type of following that Notre Dame has.
No doubt. Hey, Coach, Oregon, I find that interesting. I mean, Oregon has to be a very appealing school to. They've got all that money. I mean, it's Tracktown USA. I mean, that's got, and their football facilities are up there, probably the best on the West Coast, as I believe you told me. I don't understand. I mean, and look, even as far as the appeal, they have the fancy uniforms. The young kids like them. I don't know why the Big Ten would pass up on them.
You know, there are a number of reasons why deals don't get brokered as you look at the surface. You would think this is a natural fit. You know, I've had people tell me that to look for the Pac-12 and the Big 12 to actually merge together and be the first conference that is truly from coast to coast.
Yeah. Well, you know, one thing is, I believe it was at one point, the Sun Belt had UTEP and Florida Atlantic, or maybe that was Conference USA. I'm getting, because everything's changing now. We've got Conference USA's got a big turnover, but you had going from Miami to El Paso, and then New Mexico State and basketball was in that conference for a while. So I think we're getting closer because some of these conferences, like you said, the Big 12, you know, the SWAC, the Southwest Conference, it went away years ago. The Metro Conference in basketball went away. So I think we're going to see that in football because when you have these big, mega conferences, it's going to be the detriment to some conference.
Sure. I mean, 25 years ago, there's no way that anyone would have thought that the Big East would not still be playing football. But again, times change. As Don Henley says, time passes, things change. And that's what's happened in college football. And I think in the next 5 years, I think we're still going to see a lot of movement as far as conferences go. I think we're going to end up with 4 super conferences. I think that's how it's going to play out. I don't know who's going to end up where, but I think that's what we're going to end up having. These 4 super conferences, they're going to jockey for playoff positions, and I think that's when we go to an 18 playoff.
Exactly. That's when you're going to get 8, 12, or 16 when they get all their big money deals together. They wouldn't do it before that, but that's what it'll take.
Hey, Coach, in that scenario, a lot of people have been suggesting that who runs college football at that point or college athletics? Is there a need for the NCAA anymore? Do the conferences run it as their own board when they run college athletics when you go to those super conferences? Who kind of manages the landscape of college athletics?
Well, at the risk of being blackballed by my colleagues, I'm going to say that it's going to be almost like a mafia thing. You're going to have each conference, and there's going to be a godfather from head of the family from each conference. And I think the NCAA is going to be nothing more at that point than a figurehead for college football. They're still going to run the basketball tournament because that is their gravy train. But I think that what they really want to do with major college football is almost wipe their hands off, because with the NIL programs that have come in, it has been a huge headache, not only for the institutions and the coaches, but it's been a huge headache for the NCAA, something that they didn't want.
Well, you guys got anything else or want to add to today's show?
Back to just what we started with the titles. Again, if you're going to be betting these futures, and I love betting them, and you can find value out there, but not so much on these college futures, because Alabama, Clemson, Oklahoma, and Ohio State, those teams have 14 appearances. It's only been around since 2014. So before, I know I bet Wisconsin at 90-1 because of the number, but that's a really, really long shot. So I don't think there's any value in betting the teams that are actually going to be there.
Hey, Mike, people are really high on Texas A&M. You hear it all across the board. You hear, probably, in my opinion, a lot of hype with the recruiting class that they came in. They probably put a lot of expectations on guys that haven't proved it yet. But a number like 25 and 30-1 with all the expectations out there, is there any value with that one?
No, they can't win the SEC West. I mean, they never have. And it's like, so I know they're good. They beat Alabama every once in a while, but they lost. How many games did they lose last year, Coach?
I think it was either they were either 8-4. Yeah, I think they were 8-4, and that's when the COVID. They were going to play Wake Forest at the Gator Bowl, and the COVID broke out amongst the team. And quite frankly, I'm not going to say that some of the players or whoever didn't have COVID, but I will say this: they did not want to go play Wake Forest. They did not want to end up with 5 losses in the season.
Yeah, not a good bet. If they get there, they get there. But look, how do you put money on a team that's never won the division in their conference? So they can't even get to the championship game of their own conference, much less the Final Four.
I want to say this is sometimes people have unrealistic expectations of who they are. And Texas A&M has unbelievable facilities. They hired a coach that's won the national championship before. However, that doesn't always equate for success. And again, how do you measure success? I think Texas A&M, with all their money, with all their facilities, I think if you win 9 games a year at Texas A&M, playing in the SEC West and playing against competitive teams from the SEC East, I think you win 9-10 games a year, I think you're very successful. But right now, that's not what they want. They're trying to buy a national championship. We'll see if it can be done.
Yeah. I won't bet on it.
I wouldn't either. I don't. Well, guys, thanks for your time tonight. Again, to everybody out there, if you have an opportunity, please click on subscribe. If there's any content that you'd like us to cover, please go ahead and put those in the comments sections, and we'll try to make sure we include it on the next show. Also, be on the lookout for some scheduling announcements. We're looking to add some content, some shorts to maybe get you some information in between, some little as we get closer to the season. But again, hit that comment section if there's anything you'd like us to cover. No promises, but we'll do what we can. Coach and Mike, thanks for joining us, and you guys have a great night.
Enjoyed it. Take care.